In this video, I want to go over how to create invoices in QuickBooks Online. And before you get started, if you're new to QuickBooks Online and you just set up your account, you'll probably want to look at your chart of accounts and make sure you have the proper income accounts set up. Now, this is a sample company and they already have several income items set up. But if you're new, you may have one or two here that QuickBooks automatically created for you, and you can either edit those and customize them to your own business, or use them as they are already in QuickBooks, or create new accounts. To create new income accounts, you would just click on Income, New Account, Income, put them in the income category. The tax form selection, more than likely you would either be choosing sales of products or services. So you could choose either one of those and then give it a name, and that's it. And you can also create subcategories by clicking on another category like they did here and adding it under there. But if you want it just in the general income account, you would add it under the main income heading. I'm not going to add any accounts. In this case, I'm going to use what they already have, but I wanted to point that out. And I also want to point out the settings. If you go to the gear icon and then go to Account and Settings, this is going to be where you find your invoice settings as far as things like invoice terms, things like that, and then also expenses. If you're going to be billing customers for specific expenses that they reimburse you for example, if you pay for a software and your customer is going to reimburse you, you will want to consider looking at this bills and expenses section and making sure you have it set up properly. This allows you to mark expenses and items as billable to a specific customer. And what I mean by that is if you create an expense, there is this billable section here and you can mark it to a specific customer. And then that allows you to pull that expense into the customer's invoice. And I do have a completely separate video on that topic that I'll link in the description if you need further clarification on that. And then another thing to look at would be your products and services. You'll have to have products and services set up before you can create any invoices, because QuickBooks doesn't allow you to put an income account directly on the invoice. You will have to use a product or service item that is linked to the income account, and then that goes on your customer's invoice. And I do have an entire video just on products and services and setting those up. And I think I even have some invoice creation in that video also. So that's another good video to watch if this video doesn't give you enough information on setting up products and services. Now you can see that in this sample company, they already have several items set up and they even have categories. And you can click on any one of these and look at it. I'm just going to click on a few. For example, if we look at design income, it's under the design category. And you can add new categories here. If you have a brand new QuickBooks file, you probably don't have any categories and you'll have to create them if you want them. All the category does is make it a little more organized over here so that you can go to different categories of items a little more quickly if you have a lot of items here. If you just sell one service, this is going to be so much easier for you because you only need one item for your service and one income account. And you actually don't have to break your income down into multiple categories, but this particular company is choosing to do that. But you don't have to make it this complicated. Okay, let me go back to this. So they're selling this at a rate of $75, and that can be per hour, per unit. You don't have to put a price here. You can leave that blank and just put the price in when you create the invoice. And then it's also attached to the design income account. So you can change this if you want to. Now, I do want to point out that when I went in to edit this item, it changed it to taxable, but on the products and services list, it's not taxable. So you really have to be careful about that. If you're editing items that you already have in place, it will try to make something taxable without you meaning to do so. So definitely be careful about that. I'm going to go ahead and create an item just so you can see the process. So you can choose between these different types of categories. Now, depending on your subscription level, you may not have the inventory item. So you may only see service, non-inventory, and bundle here. But if you have the plus or advanced version, I believe those are the versions that also allow you to track your inventory on hand of certain products. But for purposes of this sample or this video, we're not going to do inventory. We're going to choose either a non-inventory or a service item. In this case, I'm going to choose service item. I'm adding a debris removal item. I can put this in a category if I want to, but I certainly don't have to. I'm going to choose an income account to attach this to. And I can put a price if I want to. This is per hour or per unit. If I leave this blank, I will have to put in the price on the invoice itself. Now, QuickBooks does try to assist with special tax considerations and sales tax. I can either confirm their choice or skip this altogether. I'm going to go ahead and skip this. And then I'm going to choose to edit sales tax. Put it as taxable, but I want this to be non-taxable. And then if you want to also put like a cost of goods sold account here, you could, but this would be more for things that you're putting on a vendor bill. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save and close this. And now I'm ready to create invoices because I have all my products and services set up. Now, I also want to talk about time entries. This sample company isn't going to let me show you time entries, but I do have a whole video on that. When I tried to click on Launch QuickBooks Time in this sample company, it just brought up a sample QuickBooks Time and I started getting glitches and errors. So I'm not going to go there this time. I had to re-record and start over. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to show you some simple time entries. So if you go to New, Single Time Activity, you can create time entries for a specific customer. And I started typing it in and it brought debris removal right up. I can make this billable if I know my rate, or I can leave this blank. If I leave it blank, it is not going to automatically allow me to populate an invoice with this time entry. But if I do want to bring this right into an invoice, I do need to choose billable per hour. So I'm going to add a couple time entries with different options so I can show you some examples. Okay, so I chose is billable at $100 an hour. For 4 hours, she removed shrubbery and small trees. Okay, I'm going to click on Save and New so I can create another one. Okay, I'm going to create another one on November 30th. And this time I'm not going to choose billable. Okay, so I created another time entry, but this time I did not choose billable per hour. And we're going to see how this shows up when I go to create the invoice. Okay, so I'm going to save and close. And again, I have a whole video on time entries, so please watch that if you need more clarification. But overall, it's a pretty simple process. You create time entries. If you mark them as billable, you can pull them right onto the invoice. If you don't mark them as billable, then it shows up on your reports. You can pay the employees for your time, but you're not necessarily going to bring that exact time entry onto the invoice. So let's go ahead and go to reports so we can see those time entries that we just created and any others that are already in this sample company. I went to time activities by customer detail. I'm going to choose all dates, and you can see that there were already some time entries in QuickBooks. Some of them were billable, some of them were not. So I can see how much time was spent on each individual customer in a given time period. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview, but please watch my time entry video if you need more help with that part of it. Okay. Under sales invoices, you can see a whole list of invoices that are already created in this company. And then I'm going to go to customers and I'm going to go to Amy's Bird Sanctuary so we can create an invoice based on those things that I just entered. Okay, you can see down here there are a couple time entries. There was one that QuickBooks already had in this sample company. And then there's one of the ones I created. But remember, I created two entries. One on the 29th that I marked as billable, and then one on the 30th, which I did not mark as billable. Okay, and then it gives me an option to convert to invoice, or I can choose new transaction, create invoice up here. I can also do it over here on this menu item on the left, but if I do it over here, it's not going to automatically populate the customer. Whereas if I'm over here on that customer, it's going to automatically populate an invoice for this customer. It's going to have the customer's name, address up here, and any entries that are potentially marked as billable in QuickBooks. Now here you'll notice an option. I can either group time. It allows me to either not group time and put all time entries in individually, or I can group time by service and it will put together any items that are of the same service, that have the same product or service. Now these two time entries were using different services, so it really honestly doesn't matter which one I choose. But I'm going to go back to that time entry that I did not mark as billable, and I'm actually going to change that. So I'm going to reports, time activities by customer, changing to all dates, and I'm going to find that one. It's right here. It's not marked as billable. And I'm going to go ahead and choose billable. Okay, I'm going to also go ahead and make this one billable also. So that I can pull that onto the invoice as well. Okay, let's go back to the customer. Now, when I create an invoice, I can either, again, choose group time or don't group time. I'm going to go ahead and group the time by service and show you what that looks like. So there were two time entries under debris removal, and you can see that it combined them into two entries. Okay, I'm going to start over. Okay, now I'm going to show you what it looks like if I don't group time. Now it brings all the items individually. Now it doesn't give the customer any dates because I don't have that on my settings. So I'm actually going to go, not going to save this. I'm going to go to my settings and show you what that changes. So I'm going to go to sales, and here's the item. Service date is off. So I'm going to turn that on. Now let's do that invoice over again. Now it actually gives the service date so the customer can see when that service was done. And it gives a little more information on the customer side. So that's an option as well. And then I had default settings on net 30. You can change that if you want. And you can also add additional items. So that's all there is to it. Now you have the invoice and you can change the terms. You can add any messages. You can change the sales tax if you need to. You can give a discount as a percentage or as a value. You can add any attachments. And then you would just save it. And then you could either save and send, or save and close, or save and go to create a new invoice. I'm going to go ahead, and then there's also a share link if you want to just share a link to the invoice so the customer can see it that way. I'm going to go ahead and click on save and send so you can see what that looks like. And it pulls up this send email page. And you can change anything you want here. You can change the subject. You can change the text of the email, and then you can just send and close. And it's not going to actually send the email because it's a sample company, but that's all you have to do. And then you can always send reminders by clicking on this little drop down arrow on the right. You can share an invoice link, you can print it. There's a lot of things you can do there. And then I also want to make sure you know that you can change that custom email up here under custom form styles. You can also change this is the email, the customized email. You can change that and customize it. You can also change the design of the email. You can add your own logo. You can change the content of the email, or you can change the content of the actual invoice itself up here as well, if you want to customize your invoices a little bit and play around with that. I do want to also show you under the email section, you can also have a PDF attached, which is something that I like to do because some people like to download the actual PDF of your invoice. But these custom options are here for you to change around if you want to. You can edit labels. You can edit how wide it is. You can choose not to put the quantity or to put the quantity, not to put the rate. So there's a lot of different things you can do on the invoice. And then I also want to show you that you can put an account summary on the invoice, and this is going to give them their balance forward and their total amount due, which I like to put on invoices also. So you can customize your invoices under the gear icon, and that was custom form styles. Let's do one more invoice just to make sure you've seen a couple of examples. We're going to go to reports. We're going to go to time activities by customer detail just to see what else was worked on over the month. Okay, so a customer was Mark Cho. So this customer had some hours, but it was not marked as billable. Maybe they had a flat fee for that service. So we're going to go to that customer. And you can see that there are no open time entries because that time entry was not marked as billable with a rate. So we're going to choose new invoice. And let's say we are billing this customer for just general maintenance and repair. And we had a flat fee set of $700. So you don't have to have time entries on all of your invoices. You can just bill customers flat fees pretty easily. And of course, you can change anything you want. You can add a message. You can change this description, give a discount, change the sales tax. So there's a lot of things you can do here. You can change the invoice date, due date. I'm going to go ahead and just save and send. And now see, this time it has this customer account summary in it because I changed that setting. So the customer sees they have a balance forward, they have new charges, and they have a total amount due. And then it gives the actual invoice item. So this is an option as well. And of course you can change the message, the subject of the email if you want to. I'm just going to save and close, or send and close, I'm sorry. I'm just going to send and close. Of course it didn't actually send it, but that's it. So that's all there is to it. I'll put any relevant videos in the description that I think might be useful, and thank you for watching.